Greetings and welcome to Adobe Camera Raw plugin chapter. Now this chapter is all about taking these really cool high-end kind of images with your digital camera. But before we get started with Camera Raw, let's talk a little bit about just what Camera Raw is. I mean, what's that mean? The RAW format is shot by the camera. It's not produced in Photoshop or produced by the ACR plugin. It's produced by the camera. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to your camera, find the user's manual that's buried under all that other stuff, dust it off, go to the index and look for Camera Raw in the index. And if you see it, then your camera does Camera Raw, and you find out what button to click. You click the button, you take a photograph. Let's talk about the difference between Camera Raw and every other format. Now, I grew up in a darkroom. I've mentioned this to you before, I know. My father did build me a darkroom when I was like 9 or 10 years old and gave me a camera and said, go out there, take some pictures. And I think he was just trying to get me out from under his feet in his studio. He was a sculptor. Anyway, he gave me a camera because I couldn't figure out how to sculpt. And I'm glad he did because I love photography. I started out with traditional film, traditional light-sensitive film in the camera. So let's say I'm taking a photo like you see right here. I've got my regular old camera, my regular old flash, lady in black. The information, the light, goes into the camera based on the quality of my glass, my lens, and hits the film, and I've got it. It doesn't do anything else. In the darkroom, I do my manipulation based on the film. There was nothing else happening except I got what I saw on that film, and it was based on the quality of the film. Now let's fast forward a little bit, and let's talk about taking photos with a digital camera. So this is now my high-end digital camera. There are RAW and there's everything else. For example, if I take a photograph with a digital camera, same idea, I'm going to save it probably as like a JPEG or maybe a TIFF. Now JPEG does stand for Joint Photographers Expert Group or Joint Photographic Expert Group, whichever one you want to use. TIFF stands for Tagged Image File Format. JPEG is lossy, loss of information to make the file smaller. TIFF is lossless, so it will be slightly bigger when you're saving it on your camera. But here's what happens. Notice this kind of thing I put up here. When the image begins to go through your digital camera, what happens is this. The camera, with its artificial intelligence in full bloom, looks at the image and says, okay, we got some really dark areas here, but they're not fully dark, and I think those should be black. So I'm going to stretch the dynamic range of the image, the light that I see, to put those into the area of black and white and midtones. And you know what? I think I know what the color temperature is because I can look at stuff and that's supposed to be white, and I'm going to set the color temperature. It does all that for you. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, all right? A lot of people take very good pictures and they don't shoot RAW. But I don't want the camera controlling what I do. I'm a control freak. I want to control the process. So when you shoot in Camera Raw, let me turn off my little slide here and turn this one on. You will get formats like NEF, that's Nikon actually, and RAW, which is Canon. Now, RAW doesn't stand for anything. Understand that. It's just the word RAW, meaning raw data. So think of it this way. When I shoot RAW, I got my lady in black over here. The image goes in through the camera. The camera doesn't do anything, and based on the quality of my digital sensor, it captures the information just like traditional film. There are considerations. When you shoot RAW, assuming you can with your camera, it's going to be a much, much bigger file. It's going to take, on some cameras, longer to process in the camera before you can take another photograph, and you're going to need something like ACR, which we're talking about in this chapter, Adobe Camera Raw plugin, to open it up to work on it. But trust me on this. You have more bit depth, in other words, more color information, more quality than you do with the regular formats. If you've never tried RAW, okay, let's say you haven't, and you know your camera does RAW, my suggestion would be is get an outdoor kind of scene, with a lot of stuff, lots of colors, trees blowing in the breeze, whatever, and take a photograph as a JPEG or a TIFF or whatever your camera does, and then shoot the same image in RAW, and then watch the processing of both of them as we go through this chapter, and you're going to see a big difference. Now, you can't always use RAW. For example, if I'm doing a shoot at a football game, like our local high school football game, and I'm taking 40, 50 shots at a time, RAW is not really going to work there, okay? I'm shooting JPEG, I'm shooting TIFF, probably JPEG. And I understand that because that's what I am doing. But when I'm doing the good shots, and I'm doing the really cool stuff, and I want the details and I want the color information that I can manipulate, I'm going raw. So check out your camera and see if it will do raw, and then let's have some fun.